Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Parky. I am a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University School of Medicine in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. And today I'll be providing some tips on how to really kill your interview for clinical psychology PhD programs. So I'd like to first and foremost say, if you have an interview, you are already amazing. You are already somebody who is highly qualified, who would likely make a fantastic graduate student, who would likely succeed in graduate school. You already have all the skills and technical know-how. And the program really at this point is trying to see and suss out whether or not you would be a good fit for their program with the mentor that you decide that you want to work with. So this might be an interesting place to start, but I think tip number one, the thing that is the most important is to showcase that you are a good person. So the program and mentor are choosing someone who they already know on paper is pretty darn competent, and they're really choosing someone to work with them for 5 or more years, so sometimes up to a decade. So they're really wanting to find someone who they're gonna like and enjoy working with. So the best recommendation I can give is to be your authentic human self and be kind and empathetic in the interview process. So you would be really surprised at the number of interviews I've had where the supervisor or interviewer is like kind of really busy. They're coming out of a cold. They have like upcoming things going on. And it's important to be able to reflect and validate their experience, to even be able to say something like, wow, like, I hear that you're like super busy right now. These last 5 minutes, I'm happy to give them back to you if you want to take a bit of a break before your next interview. Or, I hope you kind of feel better soon. I'm sorry to hear that you've been feeling really sick and feeling overwhelmed. To be able to kind of validate their experience. Usually they're going to be like, no, 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 like I'm happy to like answer the rest of your questions, happy to take it to the end of the hour. So you're not losing anything for being just a kind and good person. And in that way, you want to be interested in their experience. Show that you care about the person that you're talking to rather than seeing the interview as a means to an end. Like a lot of, applicants might go into the interviewing thinking about like, oh, me, like how do I showcase like I'm an amazing applicant and they should accept me. But in reality, a lot of people want to feel cared for. Like, you would want to feel cared for and feel warm and like the other person actually cares about you as a human being rather than a means to an end. So if you can make the interviewer feel like they're a human being in the room, that they feel cared for, and they can go out of the interview saying, wow, like I actually really enjoyed my conversation with so and so, then you're already doing an amazing job. So beyond the human component, certainly preparation is going to be key. You do want to showcase a level of competency and you want to be ready to talk about your research interests. What are you broadly interested in and how does this match the work of the supervisor? You want to also be able to talk, generally speaking, about clinical interests. Like sometimes they might throw you a curveball and ask like, what's your favorite psychologist or your favorite treatment modality. So you'd want to be able to kind of briefly talk about, yeah, like I'm interested in cognitive behavioral therapy because of X, Y, and Z reason. I really enjoy Carl Rogers and his humanistic therapy and way of thinking about working with patients. So you do want to have like obviously some amount of knowledge when it comes to clinical psychology, broadly construed. And you want to be able to get into the interview, being able to talk about your future professional goals. So, what do you want to do in the future, and how does the program match your goals? So, you want to do some research on the back end to understand what does the program offer you, what are the unique features and strengths of the program, and how does this align with your interests and your goals? They want to see a level of both research fit and professional fit. Some mentors may want to see some level of research interest because they want people that they're taking on to eventually become academics and have their own publications and increase their own research productivity. But this depends. There are going to be some mentors that just want to know what you're interested in and what they can confer to you and what they can offer you. So, I think honesty is often the best policy in terms of what you want to do. But some people might say, well, you do want to like highlight that you do have some research interest and you do kind of want to keep the scientist part of you alive at some point, even if you're not going into academia. So along with the sort of idea of like research preparation, you do want to have like generally speaking some well-developed research questions that you would like to test more in graduate school. So you want to show that you have a good fit with a mentor and add unique value. So if your mentor is studying depression or mood disorders, but you're like totally interested in relationships and you have no interest in mood, then that's going to be kind of a tricky sell. And the mentor is going to be like, why are you interested in working with me? But you can kind of showcase, like, for example, similar to the work conducted in the lab, I'm also interested in preventative factors and depression, but in another lab, I studied sexual functioning and relationships. So I'd be really interested in understanding how dyadic relationships and, romantic attachments, how do they act as a potential protective factor in depression? So here you're offering a much more nuanced take of saying, well, I do have a research interest in the exact stuff that you're interested in the lab, but I can also add my unique value because I've had this other experience that I can really integrate and mesh with the things that you're already doing. So this is a nice balance for the mentor to say, okay, like so and so, Parky really, likes the things that I'm doing, and he can kind of have his own independent stuff going on that extends my research interest broadly construed. And kind of align with that, you want to demonstrate feasibility in completing the project. So they would want to know that, you have some amount of experience with research conceptualizing, with applying for ethics, approval, literature reviews, being able to do the analyses. So they have a good sense that they can mentor you, but they don't have to like handhold you the entire way through the journey. The next tip I can offer is to really just be curious and open to the experiences, whatever comes into the interview room. It's okay to say, I don't know. Sometimes they might throw you a curveball and you're like, oh gosh, I don't really know a lot about that topic. So it's okay to, offer some humility that you're not someone who's coming in already, independent scientist. You're someone who does need some additional support, but you can, of course, back that I don't know up with some critical thought. Like I'm sure you'll have some amount of critical thinking to think through some sort of answer and then, offer some level of humility to say, well, actually, I don't know the whole story. Is there anything that you can is there anything about my answer that, requires a little bit of amendment or, however you want to go about that conversation, but to kind of like say, I don't know, but you're willing to think things through and think through the steps of what you'll do next. You also want to ask, certainly some insightful questions. I can't really give too many like examples because anything that I provide here, it could be kind of a cop out. But, certainly if you're doing your research and you know a bit about what the research mentor is kind of talking about and studying, then you'd be able to kind of offer follow-ups like, are you interested in this? Is this a next step for you? You can kind of ask questions as to upcoming projects, for example. But you can be a human in the room too. It's okay to ask silly questions. You can ask questions like, do you enjoy living in the city? Are there parts of like being a professor that's really fun or a graduate student that is really fun and things that are a little bit trickier? So it's okay to just like have an enjoyable conversation. And as long as you're kind of like mashing that up with some level of adequate preparation. So other interview tips I can offer, obviously you want to be punctual, you want to be respectful, all the good stuff I'm sure you know by now. I like to think of being like a friendly, compassionate professional, like you're somebody who is a joy to work with, but you're obviously, you're setting boundaries appropriately. You're not making off the handle jokes, unless it's kind of like it really feels like it fits right with the situation. There's some amount of perspective taking that needs to be required. You're someone who's generally compassionate. You care for the other person and their needs. And, certainly sending a message, thanking them for their time doesn't hurt after the interview. And last but not least, I would say have fun in the interview. So I want you to really take some time to use your own theory of mind, your perspective taking skill to kind of ask the question of like, what kind of person would I enjoy talking to? Would it be somebody who just like straight-faced professional talks about all these amazing things they've done? Or is there somebody that's more enjoyable to talk to when they share, what they know, their competency, but also willing to share what they don't know and just kind of have fun with the conversation? What type of student would I want to join the program? And being able to answer these questions will help you identify how you want to present yourself in this specific interview, while also, of course, balancing being like a regular, good human being, authentic human being. And ultimately, these interviews are a strenuous process. It's hours of your time, it's hours of others, people's time. How can you make it a fun, dynamic conversation? And remember, the interviews are ultimately a two-way street. Like it can be easy to get lost in the sauce and think, okay, like I just need to impress them, I need to impress them. But in some cases, like no decision is better than making a decision, especially if the program doesn't feel like a good fit for you. So you do want to kind of showcase that you are someone of value, you're someone who with a lot of amazing skills, and the program is also sussing out, just as much as they're sussing out whether you're a good fit, you want to make sure that the program and the mentor feels like a good fit for you. All right, that's it for this video and hope you enjoyed and take good care. Thanks for listening.